I woke up to pain before I woke up to reality. It was the kind of pain that doesn't announce itself all at once, but pulses slowly, insistently, like something alive beneath the skin. When I finally opened my eyes, my vision swam, and for a second, I thought I was still dreaming. Then I saw my mother standing in the doorway. Her arms were crossed, her lips pressed into a thin line, her gaze fixed on my face with a look that wasn't concern or shock, but calculation. "You'll have to skip the photos," she said flatly. "We can't have you ruining Claire's perfect day looking like that." It took me a moment to understand her words, another moment to realize she was talking about my face. I tried to sit up and a wave of nausea crashed through me. My cheek felt like it was burning. When I lifted my hand to touch my nose, pain exploded through my skull so sharply I cried out. My mother didn't move. "My name is Emma. I was 24 years old, and it took nearly 2 hours for the truth to fully sink in. 2 hours of confusion, denial, and quiet terror before my mind finally allowed itself to see what my parents had done to me. I wasn't the child they worried about or bragged about. I worked as a dental hygienist, a practical job that paid the bills and left little room for glamour. I lived alone in a small apartment across town, paid my own rent, and put myself through community college one class at a time. My life wasn't impressive to outsiders, but it was mine. I was independent. I was stable. I was invisible. My sister Claire was the opposite. She was beautiful in the effortless way people talk about. She had flawless skin, perfect teeth, and a smile that looked like it belonged in advertisements. She called herself an influencer, even before she had the numbers to back it up. 10,000 followers on Instagram, endless selfies, sponsored dreams. My parents adored her. They poured money into her pageants, her personal trainers, her photo shoots, her designer clothes. They said they were investing in her future. I never complained. I never asked why she got everything and I got nothing. I learned early that my role in the family was to be reasonable, grateful, quiet. The one who didn't need much, the one who didn't make trouble. Claire's wedding was 3 days away, and for my mother, it was the most important event of her life. Not my sister's happiness, her image. The venue was expensive, the guest list impressive, the groom's family comfortably wealthy. This wedding was my mother's crowning achievement, proof that she'd raised a perfect daughter. I'd been asked to be a bridesmaid. I didn't want to. I knew I'd feel out of place next to Claire and her polished friends, but I agreed anyway. Saying no would have caused drama, and I'd spent my whole life avoiding that. 3 days before the wedding, my parents insisted I stay at their house. "It'll make everything easier," my mother said. "We'll all be together." Something about her smile made my stomach tighten, but I ignored it. I packed a small bag and drove over, telling myself I was being paranoid. That night, my mother hovered. She kept offering me tea, refilling my mug even when I said I didn't need more. "Chamomile," she said gently. "It'll help you sleep. You've been so stressed." Her voice was warm, almost loving, the way it used to sound when I was a child and wanted her approval. I drank it without thinking. Within 20 minutes, something felt wrong. My limbs grew heavy, like they didn't belong to me anymore. My thoughts became slow and foggy. I remember standing up to go to my room and nearly collapsing. I barely made it to my childhood bed before everything went black. I woke up screaming. My face felt like it was on fire. I couldn't open my left eye. When I tried to move my head, pain shot through my skull so violently I nearly passed out again. I stumbled to the bathroom, gripping the wall for balance, and turned on the light. The reflection staring back at me didn't look human. My face was swollen, misshapen. One eye was completely black and purple, swollen nearly shut. My nose was crooked, blood crusted beneath it. My cheekbone jutted at an unnatural angle. I screamed again, a sound torn straight from my chest. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. My parents rushed in, their faces already arranged into expressions of concern. My father asked what happened. My mother covered her mouth dramatically and asked if I'd fallen. When I said I'd been asleep, she immediately suggested I must have sleptwalked. "I don't sleepwalk," I said, my voice shaking. "You did as a child," she replied quickly. You probably hit the nightstand. I looked at the nightstand. There was no blood on it, no dent, no sign of impact. My heart started to race. That's when Claire appeared in the doorway. She stared at me for a solid second, then gasped, "Oh my God, Emma, you look awful." Her eyes flicked to my mother. "She can't be in the photos like this." "I know," my mother said softly. "We'll figure something out." The room spun. "I'm going to the hospital," I said. "Don't be dramatic," my father snapped. "It's just a bruise." I locked myself back in my room. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely breathe. That's when I noticed the latch on the door, an old-fashioned metal latch I'd forgotten existed, the kind that could be locked from the outside. It was unlatched now, but the realization made my skin crawl. My pillow smelled strange, not like detergent or perfume, but something chemical. I dropped to my knees and looked under the bed. That's where I found it. A heavy brass bookend shaped like a lion. Decorative, solid, the kind of thing that would fit perfectly in someone's hand. On one corner, there was a faint smear of my foundation. From the hallway, I heard whispering, Claire asking if I knew, my mother replying that it didn't matter, that she couldn't prove anything, that Claire looked stunning and that's all that mattered. The truth hit me like a second blow. They had drugged me. They had locked my door. They had hit me in the face while I was unconscious. Not out of anger, not by accident, but deliberately, carefully, so I wouldn't look good in my sister's wedding photos. The next morning, my mother sat me down at the kitchen table like we were discussing groceries. She told me I could still attend the ceremony but not appear in the photos. They'd tell people I'd had an accident. Claire nodded along, sipping her green juice, saying it was for the best. I left without arguing. At urgent care, the doctor examined me in silence before quietly saying the injuries were blunt force trauma, consistent with being struck while unconscious. He asked if I was safe at home. I lied, but I asked for copies of everything. At the rehearsal dinner, I wore sunglasses indoors. My father loudly told guests I'd been drinking and fallen. I don't drink, everyone knew that. Still, people looked at me with pity. Claire laughed with her friends and called me messy. I sat there, humiliated, watching my family rewrite reality. The day before the wedding, I overheard Claire telling the photographer to keep me out of frame. That's when I understood this wasn't impulsive, it was planned. What they didn't know was that I'd been in therapy for months, that I'd been journaling every cruel comment, every comparison, every moment they made me feel small. I started gathering evidence, photos of my injuries, the latch, the bookend, the medical report, even the tea mug from the trash. I contacted my cousin Daniel, a paralegal, who believed me instantly. We organized everything, created a timeline, backed it all up. On the wedding day, I stayed quiet. I watched them smile, clink glasses, and celebrate their perfect lie. After the reception back at my parents' house, I overheard my mother laughing and calling me gullible. That's when I stepped into the room and laid the truth on the table. They denied it until they couldn't. I gave them a choice, confess or face the police. They confessed. I didn't press charges. I didn't need to. The truth did enough damage on its own. Weeks later, my bruises faded. For the first time, I saw myself clearly. Real love doesn't leave bruises. Silence isn't strength. They wanted me invisible. Instead, I became undeniable.